Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm your host, Marcus Blake, and joined with me, as always, is the Brewing Sailor, Brendan Smith.
Hello, nerds.
And Chad Womack from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast.
See everybody again.
And Jimmy Alford.
What up?
All right, so today we are talking about Nintendo. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is finally out, and Chad's going to be doing a review on it and talking about all the cool things about it, since he's the one that has it and has messed around with it. But we're also going to be talking about the history of Nintendo consoles, especially here in America, since 40 years ago. The original NES was released on a limited basis in New York before it got wide release in 1986. So they've had good consoles, bad consoles, and it's hard to believe that we've had 40 years of Nintendo in America. So we're, as gamers who grew up with it, we're going to be talking a little bit about the history of Nintendo and stuff like that. But before we get to talking about Nintendo, a couple of things have happened since the time of this recording. We've had the PlayStation Direct, the showcasing new games that are coming out, and Xbox has done their showcase. And we're going to just touch on those things real quick and what we're excited for. So going to start real quick. I'm very excited to have a new James Bond game coming out. I don't know really what to say about the look of James Bond. Personally, I'm not diving into that as much as I'm looking forward to playing the game. So it does look amazing, and all the crap that we keep hearing about Amazon and their creative control over James Bond in the future, this might be the best thing that comes from the James Bond universe at this point. So
when Barbara Broccoli calls you a bunch of fucking idiots, not a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, so who knows?
Usually they say things more tactfully than that. And they just drop that. It's like, man, how done is she? Holy cow.
Wow. So anyway, 007 James Bond First Light comes out next year. And like I said, it looks really good. So we'll see what happens. Is anybody else excited for this game?
If it's got James Bond in the title, I'm automatically interested. I don't know about excited, but I'm definitely interested. I'm intrigued, you know.
Welcome to the roundtable of old school gamers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, seriously, when was the last really great James Bond game that we had?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Well, I mean, I liked GoldenEye Reloaded for the PS3. I still haven't played it and thought it was a lot of fun.
Okay, but again, that's just GoldenEye.
Yeah,
Whether it's a re-release or not.
Yeah, but you get to play with all the other James Bonds. It was a fun game. But I mean, if you're talking about the last true, great, unique James Bond game, sure, yes, GoldenEye, Nintendo 64. Not disagree.
But yeah, look, I'm just like anything. Given the state of the AAA gaming industry, the best I can do for you pre-launch is cautiously optimistic. Because I've been burned too many times.
Yeah, and I get that. But hearing the music and everything by watching the trailer, that's what gets me excited for another James Bond adventure and him, kind of starting out, that sort of thing. So that's
honestly, I think the last James Bond game I can say I genuinely enjoyed was probably that when they did From Russia with Love. And think about how long ago that's been. That was in the PSP era, because that's one of the consoles I had it for.
Yeah,
that's true. I found the Quantum of Solace game for about $2 at a GameStop one time and bought it and played through it. I mean, it definitely not worth like full price or anything, but the way they started the game out,
you're like, this is
but it was it was a fun $2 PS3 game.
Right.
So that's how sometimes you definitely get your money's for it. So also coming out of PlayStation, we finally got the big announcement that Resident Evil 9 will be out in February of 2026. That one I am very excited for. So, and everybody else is like, eh.
Well, I mean, no. I'm a Resident Evil fan, but it almost looks like they're getting dangerously close to what happened with Resident Evil 5 and 6.
Yeah.
It looks like they're already starting to stray from the formula. Hell, I think even with 8, it was already starting to stray from that formula that they had reestablished. Be serious. Be honest with yourself. The thing that made Resident Evil was the close quarter confined spaces, and the more open they made the environment, the less like Resident Evil it feels. Resident Evil 4 being the exception, I think, in that little equation. But now we're just getting into bigger and bigger spaces.
Okay, agree and disagree. You did get more close quarter when you got to the mansion in Resident Evil 8. Okay, I get the outside part of it and the way that the game ended, and it felt more like 5 and 6 and stuff, but still very much enjoyed the horror aspect of it. Is 8 as good as 7 coming back to the horror formula? No, I don't think so. And I would argue too that the remasters of of 2, 3, and especially 4 have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they keep up with that horror aspect, and I think that's what they're doing, and we'll get more information, I'm excited for it. But hey, if it turns out to be like Resident Evil 5 and 6, we're going to call it out as this is horseshit.
This is World War Z, and that's not
right.
what I signed for.
Yeah, you are straying away from what we like. So, but I very much like 8, and I've played through it a couple of times.
I liked it. I just didn't love it.
No. I mean, out of the times I've gone back to play Resident Evil games, I think I've been through the remake of 2 like 4 or 5 times at this point.
That was peak Resident Evil, I think. I really do think it too.
Third one, the remake of the third one was good. But the fourth one was amazing. And, Ashley is still annoying in the game. That's what we talked about last year.
Deal breaker for me. Yeah, that's the next.
Yeah. But it was a gorgeous game, and they really outdid themselves with the remake of 4. So, but anyway, Jimmy, Brendan, are you guys excited for this game at all?
Unfortunately, I've never been a Resident Evil player. I just never really I've played them a couple times. I downloaded the remaster, but I just never really got into it. It just wasn't my bag.
Okay.
Dead Space. Love Dead Space, right?
Right.
It's just that game. I tell you what, the arcade version, the arcade version, fine. Played that, spent a lot of tokens on that, back in the day, but just wasn't my thing.
I haven't played Resident Evil since Resident Evil 2. I'm generally not a horror guy. Very few horror properties, be they book, comic, movie, video game, whatever, have ever struck a chord with me. I generally find them laughably silly. The only ones that the only horror game that I liked RE1, I liked RE2. RE3 looked dumb. I didn't play it, and I really haven't gone back to the franchise since. And then the only other horror game that really ever struck a chord with me, and not only did I beat, but I played multiple times, was Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
And then Silent Hill, after that, again, RE2, you guys say that, I'll take your word for it that RE2 is the peak of the franchise. Silent Hill 2 was definitely the peak of Silent Hill.
Yeah.
It went downhill fast after that. So yeah, I'm not a horror guy. I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I like Dead Space. Dead Space 1 and 2.
Yeah, the remake of Dead Space was amazing.
I tried to get into it because it reminded me of Event Horizon, and Event Horizon is one of those few movies that horror movies that struck a chord with me, and probably because it's a mix of sci-fi and horror, because I kind of like Aliens a little bit too. But and same for Predator, they're all sci-fi horror more than horror. I couldn't get into Dead Space. I played it for a few hours and it just didn't do anything for me, and I never went back to it. A game's got to grip me quick. I don't have a lot of time for gaming, especially right now. I work 3 jobs. So if a game doesn't catch me in the first couple of hours, not happening. So I'm never going back to it. If it doesn't grip my attention, you got to have a hook right away or else I'm bored. Because I have so little time.
Well, but it's funny you say that too, because I'm glad that you're enjoying Clair Obscur. Because
I'm only about 10 hours in, but it's absolutely beautiful so far.
No, and I agree from what I've watched, but we talk about this in private discussions about the kind of games that we each like, and turn-based combat is not my thing. Whereas Brendan, you're all about it. And yeah.
See,
so,
I'm much more. I'm a tactical thinker, and I have shitty hand-eye coordination and bad vision and no color vision. So Twitch games,
yeah,
yeah, I suck at them.
Yeah,
just absolutely suck at them.
But
you know, I don't play first-person shooters. I die, I respawn, I die again. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down. I am the meme.
I am, but I'm glad that there's games like that that have come out that are a reasonable price, free on Game Pass, that turn out to be surprises. I mean, games that I'm not going to go and play, I will at least watch the gameplay and appreciate the studio that makes a game like that. I already know it'll probably be one of the top 10 games of the year. So, but anyway, we'll see what happens with Resident Evil 9. Again, as long as they stay with the formula, they should be good. Once you start straying away from it, yeah, we're going to call you out because, nobody ever talks about going back and playing 5 and 6.
No.
Although they've talked about like doing a remake, and I'm like, so are you going to make it much more of a horror than like an espionage game? I don't know what's going on here because I literally have no desire to go and play this.
6 was terrible. 6 was just Die Hard with a virus. That's all the fucking.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, getting back to the Xbox showcase that happened. Anything? Well, I'll start with Brendan. Anything that jumped out at you that you are excited for besides the Outer Worlds 2? That's just a given.
Yeah, although there were a few things about the Outer Worlds 2 that have me slightly concerned, but we'll see what happens with that. Also, all right, Xbox, please stop with the stupid freaking skits when you're doing your in-depth deep dives. The guy they had for Obsidian, I don't remember his name, and I know it was a bit, but it was a dumb bit. It was an annoying bit. Nobody gave a shit. Everybody in the comics were like, would you please get back to the actual information about the game? It went over like a wet fart in church. Don't ever do that again. As far as the rest of the showcase went, the standout for me was Clockwork Revolution by In Exile Entertainment. I've been waiting for more information from this game for about 2 years, and we still don't have a release window. It still says releasing in due time, which, funny pun considering the time travel mechanic in the game, but it's a steampunk game set in a fictional town in what looks to be fictional England, 1895. And it's the typical haves versus have-nots kind of storyline. But the humor looks excellent. The game itself looks beautiful. The gameplay looks great. The customization of the guns and things of that nature. And then the time mechanic looks a lot of fun too. So I think there's a lot of different things playing. I think In Exile might have a winner here. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll get a release date for that next year. My guess is it's probably late next year or early 2027. A new COD game got announced. Who cares? I like they got Milo Ventimiglia to be scam. Oh, who gives a shit? Fallout 76 has got a fishing expansion. Who gives a shit? Like, all right, like here's the thing: World of Warcraft had fishing in the game from the get-go 20 years ago. It took you 10 years to get fishing into the game, and now you're making an expansion that you're going to charge people for? Come on.
I'm not going to pay for the expanse, but I will say this about Fallout 76. Considering where it started when it got released and how much they pretty much had to rebuild through with all the expansions, I will give them credit for basically making a whole new game that is a semblance of what Fallout should be. Still not a great game. I'm not saying that it is. Okay. But at least they took the time to try and fix things instead of just completely writing it off.
It is in a much better place than it was. At launch, I will 100% stipulate to that. The Wastelanders expansion, the Pit expansion, those all did really good things. It's just not a game I want to play. I've always been an Elder Scrolls guy over a Fallout guy, which brings me to the Elder Scrolls Online. They announced a Pet expansion. Really? like I know last year you did a big expansion, and it was actually a really good expansion for the Elder Scrolls Online. But again, I hope that one's free. I don't know if they're charging or not, but I don't care. High on Life 2. High on Life was a fun little shooter where your guns would talk to you. Came out a couple years ago. High on Life 2 looks. If you got it on Game Pass, probably worth playing. I don't know if I'd dump money into it. A Plague Tale has a new game. It's called Resonance of Plague Tale Legacy. That one actually looked interesting. I have been always intrigued by the Plague Tale games, but I've never gotten into them, but I've heard excellent things. Maybe if I ever find time, I'll go back and play Plague Tale 1 and 2 and then eventually get to this. They announced a new handheld. ROG is partnering with Xbox to do a handheld console. That's big news. There's two different models. One has 24 gigs of memory and 1 terabyte of storage. The other one has 16 gigs of memory and 512 gigabyte of storage. What I've heard about ROGs, I will say ROG, because they have other handheld portables that are like Steambox competitors. They tend to run hot. So just know that you're probably not going to be playing them for hours on end. You're probably going to have to set it down after an hour or two.
Yeah, Jimmy.
They have added in a lot. I mean, from looks, from the specs I've seen, they've added in more fan capability into this newest version to try to mitigate that a little bit.
Well, at least
I don't know how good it's going to be. I mean,
hey, at least they're aware of the issue and are trying to mitigate it. So that's good to know.
What are they? What's the price of this? Did they announce what the price is going to be?
I haven't heard. I don't think they have. So but another game,
but it's scheduled to come out this fall, right? During the holidays.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then another one it wasn't announced, but they had another trailer for it, and it looks really good. It's by a bunch of former Witcher 3 devs. That's Blood of the Dawnwalker. Basically, it's what if Blade was a medieval Czech dude, but because you get bitten, they try to turn you, and they turn you into a Dawnwalker, aka Daywalker, and apparently. The really interesting mechanic about this game is your powers will be different during the day than they will be during at night, due to the nature of you being half human, half vampire, and also
interesting.
Right, and also the entirety of the game happens over 30 days, and the game will progress, and so you have to be very tactical about what quests you choose to do because you will lose out on time to do other quests, and what quests you choose to finish will kind of dictate your ending. So you could have multiple playthrough with vastly different endings because you did different things. So that's an interesting little. So if they can pull this off, it sounds very ambitious. It sounds very good. Again, cautious optimism, but smaller devs this is once again, just like Expedition 33, a bunch of guys broke away from Ubisoft to create their own studio and do something unique. This is a bunch of guys breaking away from CD Projekt Red to do their own studio and create something unique. So hopefully we see a pattern here and they deliver as well as the guys from Expedition 33 did.
Well, I'll make last two comments about when it comes to Xbox and Showcase. First of all, yes, your big victory this year so far was just releasing the remaster of Oblivion, which has been fantastic, and been absolutely reasonably priced. Two, we don't really care about what online shit you're announcing for Elder Scrolls. We just want to know about Elder Scrolls 6.
Right.
Or that you're going to remaster Morrowind.
Honestly, yeah. Well, Morrowind we'll probably hear about next year because I'm pretty sure that is being remastered. I think that was in the leak as well as Oblivion. But I don't think we hear about I will be shocked if we hear it about Elder Scrolls 6 at any point this year. I will be mildly surprised if we hear about it next year. I think that game's not coming till 2028, and we don't hear about it until 2027. That's probably. They've been doing every 5 years for the last 10, 15 years. I don't see that game. Starfield released in 2023. They did a DLC for it. I don't see Elder Scrolls 6 coming any sooner than 2028, and it might be 2029 or 2030.
Well, like I said, and that's fine, but if you're going to announce anything about Elder Scrolls, that's what we really want, or a remaster of.
Oh, 100. I agree. 100%. There's a cutesy little platformer that got upgraded from a 2D platformer to a 3D platformer. That's Super Meat Boy. Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming to Game Pass. It's a remaster of that. This is going to be done on October 21st. Let's see. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle got a DLC. It's called The Order of the Giants. That's coming September 4th to Game Pass.
Sweet.
Let's see. I don't remember this one. They supposedly put it on there, but Beasts of Reincarnation. I was watching it. I didn't see it. I didn't pay attention to it.
Well,
if you care, Obsidian is going to release 3 games this year. Grounded 2 is also coming out. It comes out July 29th.
Maybe go back and play the first one. I played a little bit of it when it was still kind of in a preview state, but never really went back. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear of a second one. We're going to move right along. But speaking of Indiana Jones, that's awesome. I hope that they announce after the success of the first one that in even more success on PlayStation, which apparently it does play a little bit better because of some of the things they have fixed. If it drops down to a good price during the holidays, I might end up buying it and playing it on PlayStation just to see. But what we really want is the announcement that you are doing another Indiana Jones adventure, because this is where Indiana Jones needs to be at this point. Him in his prime, great adventures, and Troy Baker did a really good job voicing the character. So, because we sure as shit don't need any more Disney movies that are just going to be lame.
Before we move on, a couple quick hits. Gears of War is getting a remaster. It comes out August 26th. Persona 4 is getting a revival. No release date yet. Sea of Thieves Season 17 Smuggler's Tide. You can now play as a smuggler class. And Invincible Versus, which is a fighting game a la Street Fighter based off of the Invincible cartoon.
Well, the Gears of War for the next gen consoles. I mean, the last remaster was really good, but I'm glad to hear about that, because the Gears of War franchise, it's always kind of hit and miss with certain versions. The 5th version wasn't as good, but it's
been dormant. They've got a new game announced, but we don't know anything about it. It's called EDay. It's about the original day where the aliens come to Earth. So
yeah,
we're still waiting on more info about that. People thought we might hear about it today, but no.
Hey, I'll play the first one again.
Yeah.
So, all right. We're going to move right along, and we're going to jump into talking about the Nintendo Switch. But before we do, this week's Sign of the Apocalypse. Soon as the the new console comes out at $449.99 or $500 if you get the new Mario Kart. Of course, all the scammers and idiots are on Marketplace and eBay trying to sell it to you for $600 to $700 without realizing that stores are overstocked. So good job, idiots.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah.
Gouger.
And by the way, I have, as much as I do on Marketplace when I'm looking for secondhand consoles for the gaming business and stuff, I love reporting these idiots. And I love the guys that are always, I'm not a scammer, I swear I'm real. You're in a different state than what you say you are. And then you just told me that I had to pay half up front to determine that I'm serious. Okay. So no, you get reported. And price gouging on the new console. This isn't the pandemic with the PS5 where there was a shortage. So anyway. All right. Nintendo Switch, Chad, you went and got your order at midnight. That must have felt really nostalgic, because I know you've done that with other consoles back in the day. So let's dive into your first impressions of the Nintendo Switch 2.
Actually, I can't remember the last console I did a midnight launch for. I've done tons of games, but it's been a while since I've even done that, because I've been downloading so much of the stuff. You know, with the dawn of the digital download. The last one I can vividly remember is probably, it's a toss-up between Halo 3 and GTA 5. That's how long it's been.
Right.
But as far as picking up a console right around launch, I think the last one I did was the Wii U.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one bit, that one hurt and stung. But everything else I've just kind of done the wait and see attitude. But this one I just wanted to be in on the ground floor on it. I'm sure that by now you guys have heard about the GameStop that was either, I can't remember if it was New York or New Jersey, that was stapling the receipt to the front of the box, and it was puncturing the screens.
Yeah.
My wife and I almost got into an argument about that story, because I was on the side of, how fucking stupid do you have to be to staple anything to the box? Because in my mind, they're getting a crate of these, and it's just a console in a box. There's nothing else to it. Like what? But my wife, on the other hand, she's like, no. Why isn't there enough packaging in this to where the screen's that close to the surface? And I'm just like, you missed the point.
Because when
I'll
you
tell you
open
one
the thing
better.
up-
If you're packaging it, why the hell is the screen facing
Face
anything
up.
but the center?
Exactly. That's what everybody was arguing. That's what everybody was arguing.
This
So
is
why
how
would you
the
put
argument started.
face up, and then there's a sheet of cardboard over that, and then that whole thing goes into.
Can we just agree that at multiple points in the chain, a lot of people fucked up?
A lot of
I
people.
mean, for $500, I kind of want like a metal case around it, to be honest with you.
Well, at least some bubble wrap or some styrofoam sheeting or something in between the plastic and the fucking cardboard. I'm like,
You want to know my theory? I'm going to tie this into Donald Trump. We don't talk about politics, but hear me out. I think Chinese workers at the factory that are packaging these are having a secret protest against America, and they're like, fuck Donald Trump and tariffs and all of his bullshit. We'll show those Americans. And they just didn't put any protection whatsoever. And they're like, well, if they get broken on the way there, oh well. And I think it's just a silent protest of fuck Trump in America.
well, let me put it this way. I'll give you my launch night experience. I didn't realize that they were doing it in our time zone specific. Like when they dropped it midnight Eastern, that meant 11 Central. I just figured it was going to go midnight. It was just going to roll through. No, I just happened to check because I've been watching the app all day because I got it from Best Buy. And I've been watching the app all day. We are preparing your order. Because when I went for the pre-order, we were on like 3 different devices because when the pre-orders launched, the app completely glitched up. Like you couldn't get an order in for like half an hour on Best Buy. Target, forget about it. GameStop was even worse. And I made sure that all my credit card information was in, so I wouldn't have to go through that registration process because I have a Best Buy credit card, so a Best Buy Visa, so I'm good. I'm set there. But we couldn't get in. I wound up not being able to get the Mario Kart bundle, but I did get Mario Kart physically because I was not going to get a digital download because I knew how big that sucker was going to be. And the internal memory on this thing, granted, is much bigger than it was on the Switch. It's got a 256 gigabyte internal memory right out of the box, but real estate is crucial on, as we well know, with our Xbox and PS5 shit. It takes no time at all to fill up a hard drive. Now, granted, you can get an expansion card, but it's a very specific type of expansion card. You got to get the EX expansion card. And Best Buy only had like a 256 gigabyte one. Well, that's no bigger than the internal memory you already have. I had a 512 in my Switch. So I'm going to need a 512 in my Switch too to transfer everything over, which in and of itself has been the majority of what I've done since I picked it up at midnight on Thursday. Is
we all agree that they should just give us an SD expansion slot? Just come on.
Yeah.
Can we just like loosen the Nintendo purse strings just a little bit? Wouldn't it be cheaper for them? Like, wouldn't they make more money? But whatever.
As what?
Sorry, that's all I had.
What do you mean exactly? What are you referring to?
Well, they wouldn't like everything that they had to spend on proprietary, hardware, everything they had to spend on R&D, all of that. Just put it's there. It's been around forever. The SD, just an SD card expansion slot. Why?
You do. That's what I did.
But I know, but it has to be like the special kind, right?
Well,
what you said.
It's not proprietary to Nintendo.
Oh,
like
okay.
The one I got from freaking Walmart. It's like their brand of electronics on ONN.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I got. I got a 5.
Okay. I thought the way you said it, I thought Nintendo had, like, I hadn't even heard that. I was like, what?
No, they're not. I don't think they're as bad as Xbox, where you have to get the Xbox expansion
Right. No. That's not the case there. No, what I'm saying is that if you didn't buy one or didn't have one already, and you were there at the midnight launch, the only ones that Best Buy had were the Nintendo branded 256s.
Okay. I was about to lose
I
my
had gone a
mind.
couple
I
of
was
days
like, what did
earlier.
they do?
No. I had just gone a couple of days earlier. I got a screen protector and I got a freaking SD card that I knew was compatible. But sadly, I really haven't played the console all that much. Sadly, because this was the only launch title I got. Because I wasn't really interested in anything else because they were all ports. Pretty much everything was a port.
Well,
And
let's talk about okay, but you've played the console.
I have played the console. I have played the
Okay.
console. I bought.
So
I got the damn camera. I haven't even used it because I don't know anybody else that's got one, Marcus. And
we're waiting for you to tell us. We're waiting. The rest of us are the wait and see crowd.
And they Best Buy in their wisdom over the dorks at GameStop, they just sticker your receipt to the front of it. They just tape it to it rather than staple the damn thing like the friggin'.
But I'm assuming the camera is proprietary, like with PlayStation, where it has to be their brand, right?
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
So it could be any webcam whatsoever.
Any webcam that has a USB-C connection. Yes.
Good.
Nintendo has kind of, I think they've started to grow a little bit of a brain and not put so much of an Apple-like restriction on every damn thing. And the reason I say I haven't been able to play it all that much because I had so much stuff on my original Switch that when you go to transfer your data, you just put your Switch next to, you don't even have to connect them. You just put your Switch next to the Switch 2 and it migrates all your data, your save data and your digital rights management data over to the Switch 2 like that. And if you're going to do that, do it the day you get it. When you go to set it up, don't do it later. Don't just start downloading shit because you're going to have to lose all that because it doesn't have your original save data. It transfers all your credit card information, everything over from the Switch to the Switch 2, which is nice. It's a very nice setup. But I had such a huge library that if you can't play anything that requires an online connection, which unfortunately it doesn't require it, but it uses it. So this will override you downloading anything to your internal memory. So I just this morning finally finished downloading all of my library that I had on my Switch to my Switch 2. Just this morning. I got the damn thing Wednesday night / Thursday morning. I've been downloading ever since.
Okay.
It's running right now. That's why you see the lights in here going crazy because my Govee is hooked up to my Switch.
All right. Well, let's talk about the graphics of the Nintendo Switch 2.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's hard to imagine that this system is capable of generating this much horsepower. I've got a couple of games that get enhanced automatically by using it on the Switch. I've got the first two Zeldas, and they got a really nice, like you can buy a standalone Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that have this stuff packed into it already. But if you are a Nintendo Online Plus expansion pack member, which I am, you got it for free
Right.
for both Zeldas. And they've created a separate mobile app on your phone that you use through the Nintendo app that are called Zelda Notes. I haven't really dove into it all that much, but I know that Super Mario Odyssey, new Super Mario Bros. U got a graphical upgrade. I know that the more 2D traditional ones, I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. That
like
more,
Mario New U University or whatever.
No, the Zeldas, like the the ones that are top down. I'm not totally missing what the titles of them are. One of them where you actually play as Zelda through the majority of it. They got a huge graphical upgrade. They all run at 60 frames per second. They all run in HDR. All the aliasing is gone. They look beautiful. They look incredible. And I have noticed that whenever I played, although I had to wind up removing it because I was taking up too much room, when I played Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch, it boots incredibly fast as compared to the Switch, where it was just dragging and chugging along.
I guess my thing about it is now that this is considered a next gen Nintendo Switch, like the PS5 and Xbox Series. We commented on this 5 years ago with the PS5 that it automatically improved the graphics on PS4 games. Like it made a difference. And the same thing with Xbox to a point, although I still maintain that the graphics are a little bit better on PlayStation, whereas the hardware is better on Xbox. So the Switch 2 is doing that exact thing with Switch games. It's just automatically making them look better.
Well, it's not automatically making them all look better, but it's definitely making them run better. They didn't do any kind of a graphical overhaul on anything third party that I'm aware of. But like I said, like when you go to the boot screen on the Switch for Mortal Kombat 11, and you go to the boot screen on the Switch 2 for Mortal Kombat 11, you will get to selecting your character and starting a fight probably 5 to 10 times faster on the Switch.
Well, see, that was my biggest argument about like the Wii U compared to the Switch. Is I don't see any difference in Smash Bros between the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch from a graphic standpoint. Breath of the Wild, which I have on the Wii U, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't look any better on the Switch. So that makes me wonder about, and it sounds like to me what you're saying is you have a lot better hardware, but it's not really necessarily going to improve a lot of the Nintendo Switch like games.
Unless they went out of their way to make an enhancement package for that specific title. No. It will make it run better, but it's not everything is going to get a 60 frames per second overhaul or
see, and that's
upgrade.
Yeah, which lends into a big argument with Nintendo is you're wanting me to buy everything at nearly $80 a game or 70 or whatever when I already have a version and there's not much of a difference in the graphics.
As of right now, yes, as of right now. But they were talking, of course, this is talking, like more games are going to get the Super Mario Odyssey treatment where they're going to upscale it to 60 frames per second and an HDR, visual overhaul.
See,
we don't have an idea of what games or what the window is.
Yeah, see, I automatically see a big difference with the PS5 version of games. And like The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, they certainly look a lot better and they actually play a lot better as a PS5. Ghost of Tsushima, another example. Okay. It makes it worth it, but at least with PlayStation, when you own the games, you could get those upgrades for an extra $10 versus having to shell out $60. So I kind of look at the monetary value of, is this Nintendo just ripping me off yet again, trying to replace? Because Nintendo games never really go down to like 10 or 20 bucks at a store. They stay pretty even around 40.
Right.
Which drives me nuts. Yeah, go ahead.
I just sold 2 GameCube games for one for $99 and one for $75 on eBay. So just
what games were these?
I'm sorry. One was Zelda. Was a Zelda GameCube game, and the other was Gauntlet. Something or I've got the names. I was not a GameCube.
Gauntlet Legends. Gauntlet Legends.
A GameCube to me was peak Nintendo. I would probably shell out $100 for the Rogue Squadron games on GameCube because those games were fantastic from when Star Wars didn't suck. And like I don't know what GameCube. Nintendo was like, hey, we're gonna do CDs. We're gonna make CD based games, disc based games. We're gonna make them really, really awesome. It's gonna be a great system. You can pick it up, take it anywhere you want because it's a little tiny cube. And then back to cartridges for the next.
Well, it was also
years.
the smallest run of games, which is one of the reasons why
Wii was disc-based.
That system's games.
Oh yeah, I guess it was. Yeah.
Is because it was like the smallest run of games that they made for any of their systems.
Yeah.
As opposed to all the cartridge games, which they made millions of copies.
Well, I mean, I do miss the CD games. Like I love the fact that I have CD games for the Wii and the Wii U, and now we're back to cartridges. I always complain about what they considered, the value of these games for Nintendo, whereas after a few years, you'll get cheap copies of games. Like they will go down, especially around the holidays. And I never see that especially when I'm having to buy multiple versions of a game for different consoles from a gaming business and just me personally. And it drives me nuts. And then you're wanting me to upgrade because of this new console. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Well, the thing that I think is about the most aggravating aspect of being a Switch 2 owner now, and I know that I speak for a lot of other Switch 2 enthusiasts, is this game key card shit is driving everybody batshit crazy. The game card, okay, you've got the full game on the card. or you buy a game code in a box, which I think is the most ludicrous, dumb shit I've ever heard of in my life. But the game key card, I thought the code was worse.
Hold on, back up a second. So you go to a store.
I'm not making that up.
To buy a box,
Mhm.
and the only thing in the box is a code.
It's the download
to
code.
download a digital game, which you could have just bought from the online store.
No, but you just had to have this.
But there's nothing in it.
No, a cartridge did come in there. It's in my Switch 2 right now.
Right, okay. but in that scenario, I'm not saying with yours, but in that scenario, okay, that's like getting an empty box on Christmas morning. Like, what the actual Nintendo? You can buy it in an online store, right? You don't have to go buy the box. You're just doing it to have a box.
Well, and now bear in mind, this is pretty much your only first party release on this console. This game right here. That's it. Because like Donkey Kong Bonanza doesn't come out until July. And it's not going to be as expensive as this was.
And then they're charging full price for the Zelda from the Switch 1, which is ridiculous.
All right.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate here. If you're buying a gift for someone that needs to be wrapped, you might want the box. and if you don't have a Switch account to get the code, you're going to have to go to a store. And if there's no physical game, that's what this purchase is for.
Mm-hmm.
It is dumb as hell, but
there's a thing
as a gift to someone else when you don't play the system.
There's also something you can do, and you don't have to buy a box that has a fake. You can just get a Nintendo gift card, or a GameStop gift card, or a Amazon gift card, like literally anything. Like this is just marketing BS.
Who refuse to give gift cards because they're like, it's not. I mean, gift cards are not personal. Blah 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 blah. Don't give cash for gifts. Give me cash.
Yeah,
please give me cash.
It's always the right color and it always fits. So
right. And it's accepted everywhere.
Commenting on what Brendan said about an empty box at Christmas, there was only one time in history where the empty box campaign worked out. Right.
Marcus, you stole my thunder. I was about to go there.
One time. After that, you can't get away with it.
Oh, no. Now, bear in mind.
And I guarantee you this is still not as popular as Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay, just as an example, like Street Fighter 6 is the game key card format, but Cyberpunk had the game on the card.
Right.
It wasn't a game key card where you had to have the thing inserted and then you download the rest of the it's kind of like what some of the disc-based games on the PlayStation and Xbox were like. You bought the disc, but you needed the disc in the drive in order for the game to run. That's what these key cards are, and I think they're stupid. I think that is just, I was like, if you're going to buy a cartridge, put the whole damn game on there, because that's why I'm buying the cartridge, so I don't have to take up the additional hard drive space. So F you in the face for making me do this shit. But, but anyway, back to launch night. When I walked up to my Best Buy, I think I told you about this, Marcus, but because I sent you the pictures of it. When I walked up to the Best Buy, and they kind of did a shitty job of letting you know which line to get in when you got out of your car, because on the left side of the building, going all the way down in this direction, were the pre-order people. And the right side of the building that was going all the way to the corner, back to the freaking service road of 30, going around the building, were people that were doing walk-ups, hoping they were going to get one that they just got in store. I don't know how they fared, because they got us pre-order people, there were about 150 of us, in and out of there in 20 minutes. It ran like a Swiss watch, so kudos to Best Buy and they had all the accessories that maybe you didn't think to pre-order right there by the checkout counter. They had like impulse buy shit, like their amiibo characters, which don't even get me started on this amiibo ridiculousness. Now, I'm an amiibo guy, but like they did 3 of the Street Fighter characters that they're selling for $40 a piece. No, thank you. Hell no.
I'm sorry. When it comes to pricing, and Marcus has already heard me bitch about this, but when it comes to pricing, the entire AAA games industry is losing its freaking mind.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at look at some of the most popular games of the last a couple of years, right? Elden Ring, $60 release. Baldur's Gate 3, $60 a release. But Oblivion Remastered, $50 release. Clara Obscura Expedition 33, $50 release. Pal World, $20 release. Killzone or Helldivers 2, $30 release. Like game companies, we're going to charge $80. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the first $100 game. Oh, really? Let me use that same machine Peter Quill had.
Okay.
Kiss my big Irish ass. You ain't get $100 from me.
I don't disagree with you. But devil's advocate here. One, Helldivers wasn't that technically that's not a AAA game company.
No, I mean it really isn't.
Okay, but it delivered AAA quality.
I know. Okay, that's fine. Just bear with me. It's the company's the charge, not the quality. But here's the deal. How much were Nintendo games back in the day in the 80s?
Like, no, I'm not.
Just bear with me. They were still like 30, 40, $50 then. They were.
This has got nothing to. All right. I know what you're saying.
Then let me say it.
Okay.
40 years, the price has not gone up. Okay. Devil's advocate here, they're putting in so much more money into these games. Now, I am not saying that they're necessarily better. I'm not necessarily saying that the companies are doing it better, a better job, but everything else has gone up in price except for video games. Video games have been about the same price for like 40 years, and so have consoles. This is the first time that consoles and the games have started going up significantly in that time. I don't like it either because I don't want to pay it either. I get it.
It is not inflation why these are going up. Why these games are going up is two reasons: corporate greed and pure mismanagement. When you have a 600-person team that can't put out a game in a decade, okay, like Skull and Bones, okay, that's why these games are so expensive. It's got nothing to do with it hasn't gone up or inflation or this or that and the other thing. It is because these studios are overbloated and mismanaged.
Then don't buy from them.
I'm not. I'm voting with my wallet, and I'm going to be very, very vocal about it.
Other games that they're run better by better people that still cost more money.
Which I just noticed, and those are the ones I've bought over the last few years, and I'm going to be very, very vocal about it because I want other people to do the same thing.
I will throw this out there. If you're willing to put 100 hours into a game and you spend $100 on it, I feel like you do get your money's worth. However, and there is a flip side to this argument about why we talk about gaming subscriptions like Game Pass and then the PlayStation Now or Plus or whatever the hell it's called at this point, where you can at least try it out before you decide to buy it. Okay. I think I agree that they're overpriced, and there's very rare games that I'm actually going to shell out $100 for. If it takes me 12 hours to complete the campaign, to me it's not worth $100. Okay, but if it's a huge open world game that I've literally put 100 hours into, I'm like, okay, that's my money's worth if I've gotten there. But I also feel like you've got to be able to spend some time into it. So to what Brendan said earlier, a game has got to catch you quick. 2 hours is your limit. If it doesn't catch you to make you want to play it, you're out. This is one of those things where I praise PlayStation in the sense of if you have their subscription, not the regular PlayStation, but the subscription services, it does give you a 2-hour limit to try out a game before you buy it. Okay. And I think that does help. EA, if you have Game Pass or you subscribe to EA Play, you can essentially play 10 hours of any of their sports games, which if you do it right, you can actually complete a full Madden season in 10 hours without having to buy it. I am only saying, I am not disagreeing that it's mismanagement, prices or whatever, but if you are looking at the other side of the inflation of what games used to be compared to what they are now, I think it comes down to what are you willing to spend on a game and what do you feel like is your money's worth? And that is why we have things like Game Pass or the PlayStation subscription service where we can play those games without having to actually purchase it. Now, I'll ask this. Brendan, would you have spent $100 on Baldur's Gate 3?
No. There's not a game. I mean, I'm just going to put this out there. There is not a game that I will spend $100 on.
Okay.
Ever.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Ever. I will wait because you know what'll happen? In 2 years, it'll be 50 and then I'll buy it.
Yeah.
That's true.
You ready?
Okay.
World of Warcraft. Starting
Okay.
out $14 a month. In a year, you've already spent over $100 in that game.
Very true.
And I'm sorry, and that was in 2004 when it first came out.
And I think I played World of Warcraft for about 2 months, so I spent $30 on it.
Fine. I'm just
that's
saying.
that's an apples and oranges comparison.
Yeah.
No,
You're also
buying a game, spending the money. That was the question.
I'm buying the game. How much did World of Warcraft cost at launch?
Oh, it's like $45, I think.
Okay.
And then
you're talking about paying for a service rather than talking about buying a game.
Here, we're going to move on. At the end of the day, it's about what you get your money's worth and what you're willing to pay for a game compared to when it's going to go down eventually. And Brendan's got a point. After a certain time, if you don't get it on opening night, eventually you're going to be able to get a discount. That's what the holidays are for. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question and I'm going to move it on so it doesn't get into a huge debate or anything. Chad,
Senor.
is the price of the new Mario Kart game worth it from what you have played?
From what I have played, well, I haven't played it all that much, but it's beautiful to look at, and it's amazing how they've broken the mold. I mean, you think about this for a second. Do you realize that this is the longest it has been from one console jump to the next in Nintendo's history?
Right.
This is the longest it's taken them to go from one console generation to the other. And that
But wait a minute. What was the console before the before the Wii?
Before the Wii?
Yeah, it was GameCube, right?
GameCube, yeah.
When did the GameCube come out?
Hang on, because I actually got all this. Okay, NES 83, Japan 85 here. Super NES 90, Japan 91 here. Virtual Boy 95. Nintendo 64 96. GameCube 2001.
Okay, so 7 years.
Wii 2006. Wii U 2012.
Wait a minute. I thought the Wii came out in 2008.
That's 2006, unless this information is bad.
Oh, okay.
Wii U
All
2012, Switch 2017, and then Switch 2 2025. 8 years. It was an 8-year gap between the one and and it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has.
It's because the Switch is associated with the current generation, and it really came out mid-generation.
Yeah.
It came out halfway between the two, so it gets associated with PS2 and or PS5 and Xbox Series X, but they came out 2 years after it,
Right.
and or 3 years after it. So yeah, it's because they're that mid-generation
like
dump.
They're half a generation behind every time.
Okay. So far, what are your impressions of the system? Do you feel like it was worth the $500?
It's yet to really prove itself to be worth what you paid for it because it's too early. Do I regret getting it? No, I don't, because Nintendo has, with very few exceptions, rarely let me down. the Virtual Boy and the Wii U being the glaring,
Yeah, I like the Wii U. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, it's I didn't have a problem with the system. It's just like Nintendo didn't seem to know what to do with its own product back then. They didn't know how to market it, and people didn't know how to accept it because they were cheap. They have to be force fed everything. You know, what is this? Is this another Wii or no? Let's just do your homework. But they
what the internet is for.
But it seemed like Nintendo just abandoned it way too fast. Like they didn't do it to develop it. And I think they were so hungry to get to what they were working on to eventually make it the Switch. And now this is just the next natural.
They screwed up the Wii U marketing something terribly. I was working at a GameStop for beer money as a second job back when that came out, and the amount of people that would come in and be like, oh yeah, I want to get that expansion. I'm like, it's not an expansion, it's an entirely new console. And they're like, oh, I thought it was going to be like a $200 expansion. No, it's a full-on $300-400 whatever it was new console. Yeah. And they were shocked, and then like the sticker price, well, I'm not buying that, and they turned around and walked out.
And that happened all over the place. That happened everywhere. That's why
and it was
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, they didn't have any of the same kind of launch that Nintendo had always had with a console when the Wii U came out, right?
Well, it wasn't superly saturated the way the Wii was, and I just don't think that they explained what the difference was between the Wii and the Wii U to where, like Brendan said, your average casual consumer is going to walk into a game shop and say, yeah, I want that, whatever the hell it is they're talking about, because everybody was so Wii crazy. Because I mean, the Wii was just, we hadn't seen a phenomenon like that in gaming since I don't know how long. As far as capturing
and the reason
like nothing else.
Well, the reason I ask these questions is I know I was the only one that got the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 on opening day. I had, despite the pandemic, I had already had our company budget set to get review copies. And when Omri and I were, doing a live test and playing the game and everything, Xbox worked perfect. Hardware was amazing. But of course, it was the PlayStation 5 that crashed because, I put my external hard drive on there and it wasn't really ready to do that per se. I think that took a couple of updates within the first week before it was really going to play off of it. So we were kind of like, oh, okay. And of course, the PlayStation 5 was more money. They were dealing with the shortages. It is, it's an amazing console. I mean, Brendan, you guys finally got one. You love the PS5, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. Although, I don't know. There's a lot of things about modern consoles that I'm just getting burnt out on. And right. I've actually said, this is my last console generation. Right. I'm not buying another console because the next Xbox isn't going to run a Windows architecture. It's going to run Windows. Okay. So that's essentially a cheap PC. Okay. Right. Xbox games you can already play Game Pass on PC.
Right.
Steam has everything else, and Steam is about to strike a deal with PlayStation to get their first person parties. So at that point, why would I buy 3 consoles when I can just buy a PC?
No, I get it. But my point is, do you at least like the PlayStation 5 versus the PS4, right?
Yeah, the PS5 is definitely a better. So I like the PS4 wasn't as big as an upgrade over the PS3 as I thought it was going to be, and I think the PS5 is a much bigger gap between the PS5 and the PS4 than there was between the PS3 and the PS4.
Jimmy, what would you say about that? Because before coming on board with us, that's what you had. I mean, that's what you have, a PS5. What's your impression of it?
I really enjoy the PS5. I enjoy the PS4. I'm about to cancel my PlayStation membership and only go with the Xbox membership because of what Brendan was just saying, because I can have the games across both that and my PC. I don't see any reason to have the PlayStation membership anymore.
Especially if you have a Steam account. Especially if you have a Steam account, you're going to have access to all those PlayStation first-party titles anyway.
Yeah. So I make the comparison because from what Chad is describing of the Nintendo Switch 2, first, it doesn't make me want to run out and spend $500 this week. when I don't play Nintendo as much. Okay. Two, it sounds kind of like the PS5, where I'm glad I got it, but they didn't have everything completely ready. It wasn't until the next year. It really, what did it for me with the PS5 was Ghost of Tsushima. That was the first game that I saw was like, wow. Also, well, no, not Jedi Fallen Order because that had already come out. But anyway, that was really the first game. And I didn't, and I eventually played the first Last of Us, the PS5 or PS4 version on PS5. And that's how I got into the series. And then eventually I went to 2. So it took a really great game for me to be really super excited about it compared to enjoying the hardware of Xbox and Game Pass, I guess is what I'm saying. All right, Chad. You think it's too early to tell right now because not enough has been released at launch with the Nintendo Switch 2, right?
Yeah, it didn't have a. That's my biggest complaint probably about the Switch 2 was that it had a really weak launch slate of game titles.
Yeah.
I wish they would have had at least 3 or 4 first-party titles available at launch because as it stands, this is it. Because we don't get Donkey Kong Bonanza until the middle of next month. We don't get, but they've yet to really give a firm date on when Metroid 4 is going to drop.
Yeah, and that seems weird. It seems a weird time to launch a console too, mid-year when you don't have a lot of games. Like, if you had waited until Black Friday to drop this, like Halloween or November, right, and you had 3 or 4 more games in your launch window, I mean, I don't think anybody A would have minded, and I think B, it probably, as good as it was, probably would have been a little bit better just because you had more games to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thing too is if you're getting this for kids, summer vacation.
Fair. That's a valid point because I don't think about it from that point of view because I don't have kids.
No.
But...
Well, no, and I get that. I think it's a good time. But to Chad's point, this is also the time that you should have more games that come with it, like a new Zelda game or something like that, where you're going to spend the summer in a huge open world game. Because that was, while Breath of the Wild came out about the same, that was its big first. Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild was the first big title that came with the first Nintendo Switch.
Wouldn't Smash a launch title?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't really consider that a launch title when it was exactly the same fucking game on the Wii U.
But it's a killer app. I mean, people build tournaments just around that one game. I
know that. I'm not saying anything about Smash. I know. I'm not saying anything. It's a big statement, but I'm like, I have it on both versions, just not.
You're looking for the launch slate.
I have the launch list. So here it was. It was 1-2 Switch, Just Dance 2017, Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild, Skylanders, Imaginators. That's a pretty big title from back in the day. It used to be very popular. Super Bomberman, I Am Setsuma, Snipper Clips, I have no idea. Shovel Knight, Treasure of Love, Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment, and Fast RMX. So that was it for the launch titles.
So Zelda was your killer app.
And then launch window, which came out slightly after that, they call it launch window for 6 months. Binding of Isaac, Has Been Heroes, Fast RMX, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that came out slightly after. So yeah, there you go. Splatoon 2. You
had a lot more that came with it.
Yep.
Versus that. So all right.
Yeah.
That's just what I was getting at. All right. So Chad, you're glad you bought it, but you're not really sure about the price tag if people are on the fence.
If they're wanting to play a lot of brand new titles right out of the box, this ain't the time because that's all you've got.
So it sounds
either this or.
Yeah, I don't know what's actually releasing with our new titles with the Switch 2. You got the Donkey Kong game in July. Is there anything coming out in the fall?
Well, they're saying that's when they're aiming to release Metroid 4. Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a fall launch window.
Is there a new Mario game coming out? with this?
Let's see. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 Remastered comes out July 11th. Donkey Kong Bonanza, July 17th. A game called Shadow Labyrinth, July 18th. That's a Bandai Namco game. Let's see. Mario Party Jamboree comes out July 24th. Madden comes out August 11th.
Yay!
First time in a long time for a Nintendo console.
That is true. It probably does actually have the ability of running it, but
Story Seasons Grand Bazaar, which kind of looks like an Octopath Traveler type game, comes out August 27th. Kirby comes out August 28th. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So there's a Nintendo classic character. Daemon Ex Machina Titanic Scion. Looks some type of a cyborg mech type game. September 5th. Pokemon Legends Z-A comes out October 16th. Metroid Prime is to be determined. Kirby Air Raiders to be determined. Drag versus Drag X Drive, which looks like it's handicap basketball, but it looks like all of the players are like robots. I don't know, weird. That's also TBA.
It's that mouse mechanism where you're literally pushing both of the Switch remotes.
Another Octopath Traveler type game. Witchbrook comes out this year at some point. Elden Ring Tarnished Edition 2025. Borderlands 4 2025.
the Borderlands
Hyrule Warriors. Here you go. Here's your Zelda. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment to be determined 2025.
Okay. Well,
so a lot of stuff later in the year.
Okay. So it sounds like it sounds like they kind of did this too early. It would have been better with all the titles. But you know what? I guess people getting used to it, getting everything set up so they can get more titles and be able to play more. So there you go. All right. We're kind of starting to run out of time, but I'm going to do this. Chad, how would you grade the Nintendo Switch 2 right now if you just had to give it a grade?
I mean, I'd give it a B-. Just mainly because the launch title.
About a 7 or 8. Okay, yeah. I got you.
If they had a stronger launch window, launch title slate, it would probably be graded higher. But it's really hard to grade a system on new games when you've only gotten one.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I'm also glad that it's out because, at least for the secondary market, the first Nintendo Switch will start to be a lot cheaper. And, we're next year when we're running the game room at our favorite convention in Dallas, we're going to make it bigger and better. We got those tournaments we're going to be running and all that. We're going to need more. And I know I am not buying a Nintendo Switch 2 just for a game room when we can use the Nintendo Switch 1 to play Smash Bros. Now, Jimmy, are your girls already asking for the Nintendo Switch 2 for Christmas?
No.
That's a good example of that's just good parenting right there. We're not putting the idea in their heads right now.
Well, they asked. They apparently they have even asked.
So, all right.
No, look, they have the Switch 1. My daughter, she likes, Mario Kart. She plays that just fine. And at the end of the day, like, we have an Xbox and we have a PS5, and I've got a PC. Like, they have all the games that they could possibly ever want right now.
My niece and nephew have asked if I was going to get the console because it's the summer and they're going to be spending time over the summer. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. There's no reason to spend that amount of money and I had to tell my nephew, I was like, see, the money I could spend on it, I might be able to find you some cheap games for the Nintendo Switch that we just got you. So that's how we're going to work that out. Anyway, all right. Here's the question I want to ask after 40 years of Nintendo, your favorite Nintendo console. Two-part question. And it might be the same answer. What is your favorite Nintendo console? And what do you consider the best Nintendo console? So, and Chad, I'm going to actually start with you.
Of course you are. Shit. Well, I know that the one that I got the most excited about was the GameCube, because the only reason I was totally sold on that game was on the strength and the back of the aforementioned Rogue Squadron.
Right.
I had never been so teary-eyed looking at a game trailer as I was when I first saw the footage of Rogue Squadron. I guess it was Rogue Squadron 2, actually, technically speaking, because Rogue Squadron was a Nintendo 64 title.
Yeah.
And this was the sequel to it, but it was just mind-blowing. I'm like, that's a system seller right there. You know, granted, we had already gone through the 3D Renaissance with the Nintendo 64 era, and
Sure.
that was a great era. I will give you that. But I had so much fun when the GameCube era hit. And I wore that sucker out. I wore my GameCube out. However, when the Wii dropped and I was able to modify it and basically run any, like what you got your game stick behind you, you know, running Punch Out on, I could basically run any game on there from the Wii era backward.
Yeah.
Anything. And so it rekindled my love for the Wii, and it made it that much more of a valued part of my gaming hardware.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But with that being said, also when the pandemic hit and I had my Switch, I have spent more time logging into Animal Crossing on the Switch than probably. So it's a really hard back and forth between the Switch and the Wii. Is my favorite console.
I love the Switch. I do. I don't do enough Nintendo personally that I would have bought it when it came out. But I do love what they've done with it. I love, like, Mario Odyssey is a great Mario game. I'm going back and playing it again. Okay. Breath of the Wild is an amazing game. Tears of the Kingdom is another amazing game. You know, I don't see the need to play those on a Nintendo Switch 2. But, you know, I also love the fact that you can get cheap third-party controllers off Amazon for the Switch, and they're easy to hook up. And that makes me wonder about the Switch too. Like, would I be able to, the same controllers I have, am I going to be able to connect those?
If you are, every controller for the most part. I mean, like, I know the Joy-Cons, the native Joy-Cons on the Switch, automatically compatible on the Switch too. You just don't have the mouse.
And that's fine. But I mean, like,
controller works on the Switch too.
Yeah, but the controllers I have, I mean, literally, I can get them for $12 each now off Amazon.
Yeah, I think if you can sync it with the Switch 1, it works on the Switch 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that'll be a good test, and that will make it worth it because I have some awesome controllers, and I'm going to be getting more for the tournament stuff. Okay, cool. Brendan, how about you? What do you consider the best of Nintendo's consoles, and what was your favorite? And is it the same?
So the favorite for me is the same as GameCube because that's actually the last Nintendo system I ever personally bought myself. I got the Wii for Aaron, but I never played it. I just found it so weird that they named a game system after a euphemism for human urine. I just never got over that. Maybe it's the 5-year-old in me. I don't know. Anyway, my favorite, definitely GameCube. I played the shit out of it for the Rogue Squadron games, a few other games. Metroid had some bangers on that system as well. But the best one for me, probably the best overall, when you look at the games that came out, genre redefining and system redefining games, probably the N64. Just because games like Shadows of the Empire, the original Rogue Squadron, GoldenEye, which we were all talking about before the show. I mean, we are in 2025 still talking about GoldenEye. You know, and that had nothing to do really with this. I mean, just kind of, you know, talking about how it's still this day, you know, all the remasters for it. I mean, it's not quite Skyrim in the level of times it's been released, but you know, Bethesda's going to ride that horse until they die. So yeah,
Mario 64 was
Mario 64. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think N64 probably their best, but I just have a special place in my heart for GameCube. That's all.
Yeah. Jimmy, how about you?
I am the youngest person here. Sometimes it feels by a long shot. And I will also say this. the majority of my experience with a lot of gaming is as an adult when I could actually afford to buy this stuff. Like
Yeah.
since I turned 30. Like my
Since I got
GoldenEye
a
references, literally I played it in the last 10 years, and those are my references. When I was growing up, and this is not a competition, so if anyone wants to one up me on this, I don't want to hear it. But I grew up with nothing. Absolutely nothing. We got the NES in 1989, 4 years after it came out, shortly before the SNES came out. That is the only console I had until the PlayStation came out. And
Wow.
every game I ever had was a hand-me-down. Ever. I literally had to sell livestock, and this is literally livestock, in order to buy my very first computer when I was in 8th grade. So the NES is always going to be my favorite console. It's going to be the best one for me. And I just never grew up in a privileged enough position to ever own more than one console until now.
Yeah.
So
Jimmy and I's availability or ability to buy games would look like an inverse graph. Jimmy went like this. I went like this.
I do love it. Like, this is a great lesson for, I guess now you're online students, but you don't know you don't know what hard times are to earn money for a game until you've had to sell livestock.
Literally sold a cow so I can afford my very first computer in 1998.
Wow.
I never had to sell livestock.
No,
but I did have to, like, I think there were a couple of times I did some lemonade stands and things of that nature. But I'd be hard pressed to find a cow in Providence, Rhode Island. So that would be
in order for me to sell enough lemonade to afford anything, I would have had to live where there were people.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, I had people, you had livestock, so it worked.
Man,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember because I bought the Super Nintendo. My mom bought the original NES, but I had to buy the next one like in 1990. So that was like mowing lawns, yard work for my grandparents. I mean, it took a while to get that amount of money and then saving Christmas money. I think my other grandmother, my dad's mom, the one that's still alive, the stubborn Irish grandmother, she came up with like the last $50 that I needed or something. There is something special about having to do that. But I also started getting into sports, so I didn't play it as much as I played the original NES. Because I got the NES when I was 10, and I hit that sweet spot where all the stuff that was coming out, the games and whatnot, it was kind of a golden era. It was before I got into middle school sports and just other activities. So I kind of had this period where I was still kind of gaming. Well, maybe the NES. No, I guess it was 92 or 91 or somewhere around there. I bought the Super Nintendo late because I wanted the other Double Dragon games. That was the main thing. But the last Nintendo that I bought until the Switch, honest to God, was the Nintendo 64. I bought it when I was in college for GoldenEye. Somebody had GoldenEye. I played it, was in a dorm room, and I was like, I've got to get this. And I think I had it for maybe 2 months before I had to sell it for tuition. I forgot. Yeah, never got a console again because I was just too busy with everything else. And then I built my first computer. So I went to PC gaming more than anything else if I was going to do anything. And then buddies I lived with, we had all of our computers in the dining room of the house we lived in, networked and did our LAN parties.
Just to let you know how many other gaming buddies I had and other people who actually lived in my hometown that could do this type of stuff. We had a LAN party when I was in high school. There were exactly 3 of us. That's the most people in my hometown that could do this.
Wow. Wow. I think the Nintendo 64 is kind of that peak. I've played the GameCube like after the fact and recognize its importance. And I've played the Rogue One games and all that and completely agree with your assessment on those games. But I feel like Nintendo 64 getting into 3D and just the games that came out with what Chad said is that peak. There is as good as their systems have been, as great as we have gotten with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and some of these other games. I don't know if they're genre defining for guys our age or for our era, where everything just kind of came together at that time, with the original Mario Kart and stuff. Because there's always that console that that hits its peak. I mean, PlayStation 2 is probably the peak for PlayStation, despite graphics and everything, just because of everything that, came about. And Chad, you're the big Xbox guy. Wouldn't you say that 360 is probably that peak, despite having better hardware years later? Just everything that happened with what they were able to do with the 360?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with online gaming reaching a crescendo at that period. I mean, granted, we already had Xbox Live with the original Xbox, but it just wasn't what it was on the Xbox.
Right.
And it's that alone can define the legacy of a console, and I think that really did define the legacy of that console.
Yeah.
Well, the Xbox One launch, I mean, they just tripped over their own what and fell face first into a pile of shit, because they came out with everything they could have done wrong. They did wrong, DRM, everything else, and PlayStation came out 2 months later and absolutely hammered them at their PlayStation Direct for the PS4, and that was it. The console war was over for that generation, was over right there. It wasn't even close. So 360 was the last time Xbox won the console sales race. And it was 360 to them was their N64. It was the Gears of War generation. It was the Halo generation. Actually, Halo came out on the original Xbox, but it's when Halo really took off was 360. And
Halo 2 and 3, with 360.
Yeah.
I still maintain that the Xbox Series X is definitely better hardware and runs everything better, but you're never going to eclipse what PlayStation can do, especially with exclusive titles and graphics and whatnot. And, I was our good buddy James Chapman. I had this discussion with him a couple of years ago about fighting games. There's a reason the fighting game guys will never go to Xbox compared to PlayStation. But at the same time, with Xbox, your subscription service is better and everything that you can get with it. And that's, to me, what makes them better compared to PlayStation. Anyway, I agree with Jimmy that the first NES, from a nostalgia standpoint, just that time period in my life, will always be best. And friends fighting over, taking turns with Mario and Tecmo Bowl. I mean, it doesn't matter what football game you get in that it technically looks better. There's just something about the original Tecmo Bowl.
Same thing. It's the only game that I can think of that had a character so good that his use was banned. You couldn't play as the Raiders because of Bo Jackson.
Right.
You could literally run for the entire quarter and then let time run out and then score.
Right. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, as good as boxing games have gotten, there's still something just nostalgic and fun about that. And, the original Legend of Zelda. And
I still play that on an emulator every once in a while.
Yeah, I do too. It's funny.
3 had a movie about it, and I literally just played through it 3 nights ago, all the way through it in one sitting. For
Double Dragon had a movie about it too, but we try to forget that.
I liked the Super Mario Brothers movie.
I was about to say, so does Super Mario Brothers, and yeah.
I will say, speaking of gaming movies, though, there was an announcement on Facebook about that Riley Keough is coming back in concert, after a long time or whatever. And all I'm like, as much as I love Jenny Lewis and Riley Keough, I just want to watch The Wizard again. That all of those things happening in my childhood, you can't get past
The Wizard was definitely a better Nintendo movie than
that's
any.
what I was talking about.
Yeah. That was a better Nintendo movie than any game-based movie that came out in that era.
But then also a massive commercial, not just for Super Mario 3, but for the Power Glove.
Pretty much, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
but you have to also think about too, when the NES came out, and one of the reasons why I will always defend it, but besides the fact that it's the one I had, look at what came out right before it, or what was before it. We had what Atari, you had Intellivision, you
Magnavox.
had ColecoVision. I mean, like nothing. It was.
That's what I had.
It
Was a
changed.
ColecoVision.
I mean, it changed it all. I mean, it's like you had arcades, and then you had what you had at home, and then NES. NES was good.
Well, it brought back the industry after so many oversaturated games with Atari and the shitty ET game.
Now I will say, I did get the NES around the same time you did, Jimmy, but for a different reason, because I actually had to buy mine. I had to work and buy mine with my own money, but I did get a console for Christmas one year. But my parents got me the Sega Master System because my parents had this idea that everybody got Nintendo, so we wanted you to have something different, so the kids would have something different to come to play here. And I'm like, yeah, but Ma, nobody wants to play this.
I'm sorry.
And then I got in trouble. Get ready for this. Great baseball. Okay. Good old 8-bit sound cards, right? Great baseball. When you hit a foul ball, it sounded like the umpire was screaming fuck. So, foul! Okay. So I'm playing baseball in my little TV off to the side room, and my father walks by as I hit a foul ball and comes in yelling at me for cussing. And now I'm trying for the next 10 minutes to hit another foul ball to show him it's the game, not me. And he was saying foul, not fuck.
Having met your father at your wedding, that's a great story. And I can literally, as nice as your father was and everything, and conversation with it, I'm just trying to imagine that.
How has this not come up before? That is one of the greatest anecdotes about video games I've ever heard in my life.
I probably haven't thought about that in 25 years, maybe more. It just because we were talking about the NES and old systems, and it just popped into my head.
Holy shit, that's great.
My cousin and I were talking about this, about the original NES, when they would stay over and, we would be playing games before everybody had to go to church. My mom, for 40 years, is a big Pillsbury cinnamon rolls out of the canister. She loves doing that. Okay. That's like, and that's that was breakfast before church. So, the controllers were always sticky. For me, cinnamon rolls and game.
Sure, that's why they were sticky, Marcus.
Well, I was. This is
we know.
This was pre-puberty. I wasn't doing that yet. Jeez, wow. Anyway, but yeah, getting back to the original NES, just everything about that time period despite the better consoles and stuff like that. And I think the Super Nintendo was a good console. I mean, the Star Wars games on there at the time were amazing. But
maddeningly difficult, but amazing to watch and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the 64 is just kind of that peak. So I hope one day Nintendo gets back to something like that. And I think to me, probably more like the Switch. But it doesn't sound like they've really done that with the Switch 2. They've just made the better hardware that they should have made years ago. So I think the bigger question will be, have they finally caught up to where you can create like a party and everybody be on video and stuff like that, gaming like the other consoles? Can you download Twitch now on this new console?
As a matter of fact, you can't even run Hulu or YouTube on the Switch 2. You could on the Switch, but you can't on the Switch 2. It's like there now. Granted,
Wow.
you can't download Twitch onto the Switch, but it's probably because I grabbed one of these little capture cards. I haven't tried it yet, but given that the fact that it's so easy to move around your rig or whatever, it's probably one of the easier consoles to stream with if you're just running it into your laptop and then running Twitch that way.
Right.
But as far as running Twitch natively on the console, I don't see it happening because it looks like they're just removing that capability of it being like a living room centerpiece altogether, and it's just a gaming console. They take all the multimedia out of it.
The fact that you can't put Netflix on the most popular streaming service ever on the original Switch just almost kills it for my kids. Because look, my daughters, they like to play games, but sometimes they want to watch a freaking cartoon.
Sure.
Know? And Hulu, I'm sorry, doesn't have it. I mean, they just don't like Hulu. They don't like the interface. They don't like the app. And Hulu is owned by Disney. Somehow Disney doesn't have enough pull somehow not to be able to load. They can load Hulu onto a Switch, but they can't get Disney Plus on a Switch.
That made no sense to me either. Yeah.
I mean,
like that's just where it stopped. It was YouTube. I think Crunchyroll. You could get Crunchyroll on this.
If this console was $300, I probably would have bought it opening day. But the fact that it's $500 and you still can't do all this compared to what the PS4 and Xbox One could do,
compared to what the Switch One could do.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even realize that. That's poor value from Nintendo.
But you also can't take a PS5 or an Xbox Series X and put it in your pocket. So there's that.
No, that's true.
But, okay, I'll tell you what. There's not even, in my opinion, it's not even the same as the first Switch that came out, because the first Switch that came out, you could actually mod.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next version, you couldn't.
No.
So they've literally been paring down on the things that you could actually do with the thing that you bought, the physical piece of equipment. Ever since they first came out with the first Switch, it's been getting less and less things that you could actually do with it. Now, somebody better.
Did somebody from EA move over to Nintendo? Because this sounds a lot like Madden.
Well, I did see that somebody's already found an exploit in the OS. Yes. I didn't get into the nuts and bolts of it, but I'm like, they've already found the exploit on the Switch 2, like within the second day of it being out.
But now that everyone knows about it, Nintendo's going to start bricking everything, because now that they can just brick everything, you can breathe on it wrong. They can brick it now.
Yeah, I know when people were getting the consoles early, when people were somehow finagling, hoodwinking, dumb retailers into selling it to them early. As soon as they took it home and they got it connected to the internet, Nintendo shut it down. They couldn't use it until the 5th.
Well, whatever. I'm just glad the Nintendo Switch ones will start coming down in price, because again, if all you're doing is like a Smash Bros tournament with third-party controllers and whatnot, they're going to be good enough. And I'm sure I will end up with some more before we actually do that. I'm interested in this Mario Kart game, but
it's amazing. I keep turning and looking at it because I can't take my eyes off of it.
Well, I mean, yeah. Oh, Chad's getting blurred out like Japanese porn.
Yeah, sure.
Oh no, his face is
My controller isn't sticky, so fuck you.
Sorry, went there.
Go back in the phone.
Anyway, we are going to wrap this up. So that's initial impressions of the Nintendo Switch 2. It sounds like it'll be a better buy around the holidays with more games coming out than it is now, unless you just have to have it. And there you go. But for us, I guess we'll just, Jimmy, you and I will just continue with the first Switch, and guess it's perfectly.
I'm going to wait until it's on the used market. I mean, literally, it's just what I'm going to do. Or what happened with the first Switch, right? The first Switch came out, then they came out with the new version of the original Switch. And that's what they're going to do with this one, because the screen, while the screen is nice, they're going to come out with one with a better screen, because this screen is not as good. Like, everyone who was looking at the specs was like,
yeah, they ditched the OLED screen so they could sell an OLED screen upgrade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yep.
gonna wait when they come out with the upgrade. I'm gonna wait until someone's just like, I gotta have it. Buy this one.
And
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 So,
you
yeah, Chad, you just let me know.
and you know what?
know,
They'll probably put it on. You'll if you wait 6 months, you'll probably see them for cheap on Facebook Marketplace because in this current economy, somebody's gonna be like, I need to sell it to pay rent or buy weed or something stupid.
in all
Or like
honesty,
me,
really
I
played
always
it.
find the guys that I have to bail my brother out of jail, so I'm selling his PlayStation 5.
Or the divorcee who is pissed off at their husband, their gamer husband. So
You know what? I bought a couple consoles that way, and I those are my favorite because I mean,
yes,
yeah,
that's the Sith
That's-
power.
That's what we call irreconcilable differences.
No, no, no.
Right there.
I don't know if I actually shared this story, but years and years ago, when I was getting everybody that didn't have an Xbox One, like the one I got Brendan and Alex and
Yep.
just everybody, I was wheeling and dealing on Marketplace. And there was literally, I met a woman who, that's what she did. She was just getting rid of her soon-to-be ex-husband's shit. She had put one up for like $150. It was the first gen, and she was telling me, I'm going to stick it to him. I was like, well, if you really want to stick it to him, how about $75 with the controller? You know what? You're right.
How about you let me bang you when I come and pick it up?
Anyway,
This podcast has gone off the rails.
I don't know.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you really want to feel like you've been bent over, just buy the $120 Switch 2 Pro controller.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that is a product that I am not the target market for because
Right.
I'm not good enough of a gamer to notice the difference between a regular controller and a pro controller. So I don't care. Like
This
you
thing-
can market it all you want.
At least,
Art, man, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
y'all can laugh at me all you want to. That's a good controller. That's a
Chad,
good
You can
controller.
have it. It's fine. It's fine.
no. I'm glad somebody is getting some use out of it. We all have our things that we might overpay for just for the nostalgia. I get that. There is no shame in that. And Chad, here's the thing: you will always have the coolest collection of popcorn buckets more than we do. So I mean,
Well, okay, like the main reason I got this is because I was usually playing the Switch in like on this and Switch 2 in the kickstand mode. I didn't really play it, hand holding it. I would have it on my little nightstand beside me while I'm watching TV over here and I'm fucking around with Animal Crossing over here with the Pro controller. So I figured it was just a natural progression to get this because I love the first Pro controller so much. And I mean, this thing is an upgrade in every sense of the word from the original Pro controller. This thing's amazing. I love this.
well, I was always at least happy with the next gen Xboxes that all of the Xbox One controllers still work perfectly fine. So anytime I'm upgrading our tournament consoles, I don't necessarily have to get new controllers.
Right.
The old ones work just fine.
I will say it's always, there are certain companies that are really good about doing stuff like that. Like Xbox is good about that sort of thing. Nikon, as a camera guy, their brand, they always have backwards compatibility built in. I really enjoy that about a company. PlayStation, it's the thing that I always hated. I've had, all the PlayStations I had, 3, 4, 5 controllers don't work across them. Period. And there's always something new that cannot work going back a generation, even if you figure out how to make it work.
And the form has stayed pretty much the same up until the PS4.
Yeah.
PS2 and 3 were pretty much identical controllers. Why they weren't? Well, I guess because one was wired, but you think they would have thought something out.
Well, anyway, we're going to close this out. So that's our assessment of the Nintendo Switch 2. Like I said, it sounds like it might be a better purchase around the holidays. And we'll see what they do with it over the, next couple of years. Or, if it really ends up being worth the $500 price tag more than anything else. Chad, you'll have to tell us a little bit more about the new Mario Kart open world game in another podcast if you've had more time playing with it. And
By that time Bonanza might be out. So if we wait another several weeks before when that launches, I'll probably grab that one as well because I'm a dog.
Yeah. So I just know for me personally, if I end up with one, it will be during the holidays with some bonus money or not at all. But whether we have one in the gaming room next year at Allcon, that remains to be seen. I don't even know if it's worth it. So, all right, everybody. We're going to close this out. It is time to say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good
Take
one.
care.